is actually only the third biggest problem we've got. Both the energy used to power homes, buildings, factories, and the agricultural sector are both each about 25% of overall emissions. And transportation is actually only 17%. Although I believe that it depends how you count it, because I believe that when I say the 25%-ish for the agricultural sector, that does include transportation related to getting food to us. But
does that include air travel?
Yeah, it does. It's actually not the biggest contributor. However, it does loom really big in our minds, and I think it's important to address for that reason. I think partly it looms large for us because we can see and smell it daily, even those of us, who don't live near large factories, who are lucky enough not to, and that includes most of us. It's still something that we can see and smell on a daily basis. So it has a reality, I think, in our brains. And there's another, so I also think it looms large because it's something over which we know that we have some control. We can decide to get in the car or not. We can decide to get on a plane or not. Again, it's a drop in the water, but a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is made of drops. So we know that there's a piece of control we have there that can make us part of the solution as well as part of the problem. There's another reason that I think it's worth looking at because of something I learned from my reading last year, that air pollution from transportation may have an outsized ability on our, or an outsized influence on our ability to mitigate climate change in a particular way. So last year for my summer reading, I read The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. It's not light, but I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. But as I told Sue at the time, I drew really the place I could draw hope from, even though the evidence is overwhelmingly bad, is that the science that we have already right now to tell us how things are working and to help us find solutions is kind of overwhelming. But here was the thing that hit me more than anything else in the book. So pollution, I'm just going to read it. Pollution has been linked with increased mental illness in children and the likelihood of dementia in adults. A higher pollution level in the year a baby is born has been shown to reduce earnings and labor force participation at age 30. And the relationship of pollution to premature births and low birth weight of babies is so strong that the simple introduction of Easy Pass in American cities reduced both problems in the vicinity of toll plazas by 10.8% and 11.8% respectively, just by cutting down on the exhaust expelled when cars slowed to pay the toll. So let me get back to that. So premature births reduced by 10.8% in the vicinity of toll plazas, and low birth weight babies reduced by 11.8% just by getting rid of the toll plazas. It's really kind of amazing and incredibly hopeful to me that people can figure this out and can measure it and can show what a difference it makes. But it also scared me a little bit because I thought, there's an unnamed feedback loop here, which is that if we don't get control over air pollution, then as we go forward, needing to be smarter and smarter about mitigating climate change, we could actually be getting dumber and dumber. Like it actually affects our collective cognition to have those kinds of particulates in the air. So again, the knowledge that we have is really important here. And I think that is kind of worth considering. Thank you. We've had Diane join and Carol and Doug, thank you. I was saying to everyone, I know I'm in competition with one of the most beautiful Sundays we've had yet this year. So I appreciate you being here. And Carol, thank you for today's co-votional. That was wonderful. Really, really good. So I thought, if Amy, if you're up for doing some breakout room wizardry, we're going to get to local transportation, which is really the main theme of today. But since we have a smaller group, I thought we could also look at about globetrotting, and that some of us may have done, because Kathy made a point recently that I thought was really, really well taken, which is that if we really want to make a dent in climate change, we're not going to be able going forward to do the kind of traveling that some of us have become used to. And our children are not going to be able to do that until we can get a handle on climate change. And I thought that, you know, we all, well, I don't know about everybody in this group, but I certainly know that I've had the chance to sort of trot the globe collecting new sights and new experiences. And I have loved that greatly. And there isn't a way to do that right now that is actually responsible. Carbon reduction deals that sometimes you can click on and add a fee to your, most of the studies I've seen show that they're not only don't do anything, they may actually exacerbate the problem, because the incentive for folks in less developed countries to offer this is very great, but the incentive to have it actually mean that forests are not cut down are not so great. So sometimes we're paying more to have at least as much deforestation happening. There's a ProPublica did an amazing expose on that. So it was a great idea, and it made some of us feel better for a little while, but it isn't actually the answer. I think the answer may be that we need to stop traveling like that. So I thought we could do, just very briefly, do listening pairs on this topic. And this is what I suggest. When it's your turn to talk, and again, we take turns equally. If there's two in a room, you could take 3 minutes each. If you end up three together, do 2 minutes each. And what is one travel experience you've had that you truly loved, that you think in good conscience you really can't do again in the face of climate change? And take this opportunity just to really notice again all that you loved about it. Just gush about that trip. And we'll use this as a moment to say goodbye to that possibility that you probably won't do that trip again, or its equivalent. So Amy, are you, I know I saw you made me co-host. Are you able to put us, you can just put us automatically into rooms, or you could leave you and me in the main meeting room in case anyone has trouble. But Doug and Carol, you'll be with one other person. So the three of you will do 2 minutes each, and the rest of us will do 3 minutes each. And then we'll get called back into the main meeting room. So Amy will spin us out in just a moment. So Amy, should I go to breakout room 3, or should I just hang out with you in the, yeah, good, I won't.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Right now, Sandy is by herself. So if you go to 3, I'm going to go to 5.
Okay, let's see. Good. Okay, see you back.
All right, bye.
All right.
I would
Welcome
love
back.
to do the rest of that. Yeah, can't do it anymore. Yeah, that and be responsible. Yeah, I know. I'm glad you had the opportunity, though.
Thanks.
The memories are wonderful.
So, all right, so let's move down to the local level. We all do need to know how to get where we're going. And there are, of course, non-emitting options like biking or walking, which are excellent. And there are electric cars for those who can afford them, and hopefully more will be able to afford them soon. But, you know, until all our electricity comes from renewable resources, you know, an electric car still has a carbon footprint. The Union of Concerned Scientists has a really helpful online tool that can tell you, based on what part of the country you're in, how much you'll be saving on carbon emissions if you get a fully electric car versus a standard car. And unfortunately, in our part of the country, you're not saving that much. Like I have a hybrid car, a Prius, and I really wouldn't be saving much at all because the energy fueling our electricity is so dirty right now because of DTE. But it's a really helpful way to think about that. Made me less urgent about buying that electric car. So I was grateful to them for that. But so, you know, what I keep thinking about is a new application for something smart someone once said. So Bill McKibben, who's kind of the guru of the climate change movement and who founded 350.org, when he was asked what's the best thing that an individual can do to help stop climate change, he said, you can stop being an individual. And, you know, so much of our country is set up around doing things by yourself or with your immediate family and nothing else. And so when I apply this to transportation, to me, this means public transportation. Personally, I love public transportation. Even when I travel the globe, I forced my husband, I was telling Pam about a trip to Istanbul. I made him take a public bus at least once during our trip. I just love to see where you can get to and what you could do on public transportation anywhere. It was the best thing for me about living in New York City, is that you can get anywhere you need to go with public transportation. But you know, it's also for a city of our size, Ann Arbor has actually fairly amazing public transportation. And in fact, the whole germ of this entire series about climate change was one day I was sitting in the pew next to Sue Cares, and I just wrote her a note saying, you know what this church needs? We need a class called Taking the Bus 101, because I think as a huge collective of people, we probably don't take the bus that much. In fact, I'd like to, you know, how many people here take the bus on a regular basis in Ann Arbor? How many people take it occasionally?
I would if I lived in Ann Arbor. I've been
Right.
screaming for public transportation out here for years.
You're in Whitmore Lake, is that right?
Yes, yes. And we stand there and watch everybody, one individual in a car in a traffic jam driving down 23. And every time you bring it up, everybody thinks, oh, it's a taxpayer waste of money. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you know, this is a thing where the reality is that public transportation especially in the Midwest, especially in auto country, right, has had to be set up around those who don't have any other options. And it has largely, we have been both encouraged to drive our cars and discouraged from traveling any other way. I didn't get my license till I was 26 and I had moved here for grad school. When I lived on the East Coast, you know, to some extent, having a car was a liability, you know, you'd have to park it. And so I finally got my license here. And I remember I called up the Secretary of State's office to ask what would be on the test. And I said, and I all the things I remembered from when I took driver's ed in high school, I brought up. I said, well, will I have to do a K-turn on a hill? Oh, no, we don't do that. Well, will I have to parallel park? No, you don't have to do that. I think things have changed by now, but this was 1980, 1989 or something. Do I have to back up? No. I said, well, what's on the test? And she said, well, we'll just have you drive, in a residential area and then in a busier area. And I'm thinking, that's it, And then I realized, wait, I'm near Detroit. All they care about is that you get a license and go buy a car, So it was really, really hilarious to me that very little is asked, and there's a lot of push toward get behind, get out there, buy a car and use it. So where was I going with that? I guess the way things have been set up, at least in this part of the country, I think that one of the discouragements toward taking the bus is that there's almost a stigma. It sort of implies that that's your only option, or that you're poor, or that, you have some problem that you can't do things the normal way. And I think that that's something we all have to really think about and try to find our way to get over. Because it is an obvious, it is an obvious thing that the more of us who travel together, the fewer carbon emissions there are per person. And I actually think that there are a bunch of other reasons why it can be great to take the bus. And I thought we could, I have my list, but I thought we could brainstorm for a minute, unmute yourself and say whatever comes to mind of what you can get out of riding the bus that's not just about your carbon footprint. Pam?
Yeah, I moved here and sought a place specifically by bus stops because I'm getting older, and I figure someday my kids are going to take my car away from me, and I don't want to be stuck at home. So I did that, but I really like public transportation. And so now I live on a corner where I have one bus route going one way and another bus route going the other way. And the one I use the most is 5 minutes away from campus. So I don't even have to park if I go down there, which I like to be at the library, and I like to do things that do lectures and that sort of thing. And it's really great. I don't have to worry about it. I have to say that I have to cross, when I say corner, I mean I'm very, very close to it. I have to walk maybe 2 minutes to the bus stop. That's it.
Yeah.
And I'm often on my way. I have to say that if there are places that I have to go, that it isn't time worthy to take the bus because of the way the bus routes are set up. So that I would have, if I wanted to go to Arborland, I would have to go all the way downtown, and then I would have to go take another bus out there, and it would take me an hour and a half, and that's not worth it to me. So what I've done is I've put in my 2 cents with the bus company, and who knows, they may listen. But
They may. It's part, since improving the bus system is part of the A20 plan to reduce carbon emissions. They're going to be listening hard. Other people, what?
I was going to say that for the age group I'm in, it's free as well. That's another very, but I always take it to the airport. I mean, for a single person, it's just great going to the airport. And the other thing is that the people that you meet, or not necessarily speak to, but sometimes give a nod or say hello or whatever, or good morning or whatever it is. In other words, you're interacting with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
I agree
because
with you.
we get cocooned in our little circle of,
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think there's a way that you encounter your community.
Yep.
In a way that you because our lives are different according to how much resources we have.
Yeah.
You could never see somebody in your community who didn't have the same resources as you. That's great.
And I have one more thing I'll add to.
Yeah.
Just recently I was in Minneapolis, and they have a rapid transit system, and I used that all the time with my new grandson, and it was so easy to use. So ease of using something is also very important. Even in the dead of winter, I used it a few times. And so convenience certainly plays into it, Growing up, that's all, we didn't own a car, so, and most people didn't in Birmingham. So we didn't think anything about it, you go, But of course it was more, things ran more frequently. They still do. I mean, trains run like every 30 minutes and that sort of thing, so that's a big issue in terms of whether people will access it.
Right. Pam, I see your hand, but I want to see
Sure.
who else has something to say. Amy.
Yeah, I think for me being a transplant here, I have not experimented with the buses yet, so to speak, but what I miss is trains. From the Northeast, I had a great transit system right outside Philadelphia where I grew up. And then also in Princeton, I was right on a train line. And so it's really, that's something I miss. I miss going up to New York and taking the subway. I miss going, into Philly and using the trains down there. And so we had a bus system too, but I used rail a lot more frequently. And so I find myself now, I don't go into Detroit ever because there's not a train to get me there. And I don't want to deal with driving in. So
there are a few, but there are not many. Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, it's just not convenient. And I'm just like, why would I drive in? I'm like, I'm used to a public transit system that I can get there when I want to get there. So,
yeah. Thanks.
You can get to Chicago on the train, and that's pretty good.
Andy, were you going to say something?
I find trains, subways, rapid transits, whenever I've been in a city with those, I find those easy to figure out. I mean, even if I get on, I can find the map and I can count my exits or whatever. I find buses confusing. I have to be led on a bus.
Yeah.
And it's probably just because I never kind of got raised using a bus. So yeah, the 101, I need somebody to put me on the bus and show me how to do it.
And that's what we were going to do today. And it's just killing me that we can't do it because not only can we not gather to do it, but even the bus system is saying essential rides only right now. And that is exactly what we were going to do today. We're going to all get on the bus together.
I was gonna
Renee?
say, I don't know, was somebody else gonna talk? Or Pam, were you going? Okay. I was going to say, when my son was in junior high and he had some work conflicts with picking him up because he had to drive him to school, and we had him learn how to use the bus system, and there is such a stigma around here, and family that was from southeastern Michigan, I might as well have just dropped him in the middle of some strange city and abandoned him. To them, they were horrified that I was doing that. And I thought, this is like, there's so many kids on the bus system here, which I really like, but he knows, he knew the bus system really well. So by the time he learned to drive, he could get around still. So yeah, it's I grew up in commuter friendly Chicago, so, or, public transportation friendly. So it's just a foreign land here.
Yeah. Pam, you wanted to add something?
I want to support that idea of a bus 101 because I know riding the bus, at one point I met a man and his son from India. Apparently the son was coming to study at U of M, and they did not know how to tell the bus driver that it was time to get off or where to get off. And I had a student living with me at one point, and she was not used to the bus system, and she didn't know that you had to tell the bus driver at all. She was used to a school bus where you just went to one spot. Yeah. So I think there's more people like that. And talking about the stigma, in Flint, where I come from, which is a big car city, my mother-in-law wouldn't even walk around the block because that was a stigma. It was.
Yeah. Huh. Well, a couple of the other things that I thought of in terms of the what you get out of taking the bus beyond limiting your emissions is you don't have to park, which when you think about
Yes.
Ann Arbor, you actually may be saving money that way, no matter
yeah.
after you even after you've paid for the bus. You reduce gridlock, which is, as I said with my little quote from David Wallace Wells, which is actually helping the mental health of the entire community. The less we have people sitting, admitting exhaust and not moving, the better. And this is maybe just me, but I doubt it in this crowd. You can read. You can
Yes.
travel
Not
and
on a
read at the
bus.
same time. How
Not
great
on a
is that? Now, Kathy, you're shaking your head. Do you get sick if you try to read on that? Yeah. So, but you could listen to a podcast. I mean, you could do things that require your attention in a different way. And so I think there are kind of all kinds of cool things. And just for those of you who haven't been on the Ann Arbor buses, one nice thing to know is that they now all flash the upcoming stop at the front. So you're not going to miss your stop. If you look up, it will say Gettys and Sumac, and I will ring my bell. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce our virtual Taking the Bus 101. But I just want to say first, and we're going to go a little early today, out back into the beautiful sunshine. But you know, the best way to improve our bus system is to use it. That, you know, however you can, and maybe you can't use it every day, but maybe there's a trip you can take now or then. But the more people are riding, not only the more revenue do they generate, but also the more feedback they begin to get about routes and schedules. And some of you have heard me tell this story, but so I live on Sumac Lane, which is a private lane off Getty's Road near the Gallup boat launch. And I was thrilled when we moved here from New York and I saw that there was a bus stop right at the foot of my lane. This is a lane where, you know, it's not starter homes on this lane. So nobody on this lane has to take the bus. But I started using it I can get equally, the bus line, the number 3 route goes from me directly into Ann Arbor or directly into Ypsi. And I've used it both ways. You know, if I don't have a crucial timeline, I can use it to go into Ann Arbor and do my errands. What I often use it for is if my husband's already driven to work downtown and we meet for dinner, damned if I'm going to park another car and drive 2 cars home. You know, I take the bus in to meet him. We drive home together. So last fall, the ride, the AATA system was doing this, was having fora to talk to people about how the system could be improved. And I had put together a couple of ideas in my head. And so I took the bus to Ypsi because they were meeting at the transit center there. And it turns out to be just 2 guys sitting behind a white table, okay, with comment cards. So I write out my comment and there's nobody else there. So I finally just say, well, I'm going to give you this, but can I also tell you my ideas? They say, sure. They take out a map and I tell them that I think there should be buses that run continuously up and down Huron Parkway because there's actually, from where I live, no easy way to get to the, you know, get to the shopping centers like the Kroger or the Way One or whatever without taking several buses. And they tell me, as I know they will, well, we have to plan this around the people who have to ride. Yes, I get that. And so finally they say, okay, but show us now. They point to Huron and Gettys and they say, so you get on the bus here. And I say, yeah, I mean, approximately. I mean, a little bit east of there, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, that's where I get on. And they look at me and they say, are you the Sumac rider? And I'm like, well, I think I must be because nobody else on the lane takes the bus. And that is how closely they track. They know that someone takes the bus occasionally from Sumac Lane. They said it's a joke among the people at the AATA that they could just cut out that stop and the stop at High Orchard because nobody ever gets on there. And then somebody will say, no, there's the Sumac rider. We can't cut out the Sumac rider. So I have this little piece of local fame just because I take the bus. But what I take away from that is they really do care who's taking the bus. And the more of us who take the bus, not because we have to, but because we know it's the right thing to do, the better it's going to be for the entire system. So that was kind of intriguing to learn.
Susan, are they finding that there is increased bus service with an aging population?
You know, I don't
Or-
know that. That's a really good question. And there certainly are some really good sort of deals and discounts and stuff for that. I think what I tend to see is, students, certainly, and some seniors. And, in Ann Arbor, it can feel like there aren't that many people of color around. But if you ride the bus, you tend to see more people of color. So it's the bus I take is not necessarily the same as the whole system. The only really full bus I've ever been on was one that was going from the hospital system up, ending at the Plymouth Road Park and Ride, because a lot of the people who work in the hospital system live farther out, Canton, Plymouth, or whatever, and use that park and ride system. And that would be, I don't know, Renee, is there a park and ride place available to you, or is it they're more on the other side on the east side? Is there a place where you could park and take the bus into the university or into work?
From where I live?
Yeah.
We have a park and ride now that's, if you're familiar with US 23, there's 9 Mile where they put in, it's kind of where you get off to get into the main part of like the downtown area of Whitmore Lake.
Yeah.
And there's a park and ride where that old abandoned factory is. They put one in there. And then I heard they were going to have AATA bus service. And then I can't remember what the steps are. I think we still have to vote on it. It's either Washtenaw, and if it's Washtenaw County, we'll get it. If it's local, forget it.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's just, they keep talking about growth out here all the time and how much they want it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's like young people would move out here and go, wow, I can take the bus to Ann Arbor, and we've got college kids that live out here because it's cheaper to live out here than it is in Ann Arbor. And I think what an opportunity for people and we do have a lot of, senior citizens out here too. And I think, gosh, they can go to the doctor and everything else. But I'm like with Pam, we're looking to move to a place that's right by a bus stop or to a city that has like the bus transportation.
Yeah. Diane, I see you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I realized I probably didn't need to raise my hand, but anyway.
You did it though, that was great.
On one of the negatives around here, that's a problem for the moving to public transportation, and that is not only individualism, but the isolation of municipalities. We live out in Scioto Township, and I would have given anything for a bus system close enough for our children to have gotten to ride the bus when they were middle school and high school, because obviously we did all of the transportation back and forth. I grew up in Chicago, so I was comfortable with public transportation.
Yeah.
But I think as you see it, now we have a little bit coming out to Scioto, but it takes so long, as Renee indicated, for local municipalities to vote on and agree to be part of the system, and certainly that's even truer when you look at the regional transportation authority and connecting some way with Detroit or other metropolitan areas. So I think not only is it individualism, it's that individual or isolation for each municipality. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Just one thing, Carol, I see you, and Pam, you, and one thing about Detroit, there were plans before COVID hit. Literally, I think it was supposed to start the very Monday that Whitmer said shelter in place. There are plans to have an hourly, or maybe not quite that, bus from Ann Arbor to Detroit.
Oh,
so we are getting there. People are starting to get smarter, and then of course, to get from wherever it lands in Detroit to where you're needing to go, I had already looked up what would I have to do to get from that point to the DIA, because I would go to the DIA a whole lot more if it didn't mean driving and parking each time, you know?
Yeah.
Carol, you wanted to say something? I think you're muted. Here, I can unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
So I really wanted to just add on that we've had kids when they first moved back from college, whatever, living in Ipsy. To take the bus from Ipsy to here works pretty well until football weekends.
Uh-huh.
And then all the AATA buses that run those routes are at the U, and they stop running. So for those weekend jobs that they were working as well, it was impossible. It was incredibly irritating.
We had to pick them up.
To try to drive over and pick them up in the middle of the football traffic and try to get them to their jobs. And in talking to AATA, they said, well, look, we get a whole lot of money from the U, so we just can't deal with that.
Huh. Yeah.
And I thought, you know, we have so many workers who are in Ipsy, in outlying areas. And if the attitude is, well, no, we service the U first,
Right.
before that, it's
Right.
hard to rely on a system like that. Like Amy, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. You could always get a train. You could always get a bus. You could always walk. I mean, I like to walk in Ann Arbor more than I like to take a bus, but
Yeah.
that's because I'm close enough in, I can probably do that. For groceries, I still take the car. I don't take the bus. It's just not my way of
Yeah.
bringing everything home. But,
Yeah.
you know, if it's something small and I can get it over at produce station, it's an easy enough thing to do. So, but yeah, it's all about when will AATA also understand that if people are going to come to rely on them, then it also has to be a 24/7 year-round event.
Right. Right. I think it's not that they don't understand that, but that the resources are still limited at this point. And I think that the changes that are coming as Ann Arbor tries collectively to reduce its footprint, I think this is a really good time to be putting out what we desire and putting a little pressure on. Pam, do you want to say one more thing, and then I'll introduce our
You were
game?
talking about park and ride down here on the south side by Briarwood. You can park at Briarwood on the back side, and there's a huge outside bus station there where at least a couple of bus routes go there. And I think people don't think about that at all, but you can just park in the parking lot there and catch the bus.
Yeah, yeah, cool. One other thing I thought of in terms of the, things that you can get out of taking the bus is that places that you can't actually walk all the way to, or not unless you had a couple hours, you can still get more exercise than if you drove, because it takes you a little bit to get to the bus and a little bit then to get from there to where you're going. But anyway, we've had to put our Taking the Bus 101 online. And so Amy, I'm going to need you to weigh in on this, but my understanding is when this class gets posted later this afternoon to the YouTube channel, also posted will be a set of questions that I pulled together just from looking at theride.org, which is the AATA's website. These are all things or some of the things at least that we could have figured out together on the bus, except we're not doing that. So it's like a little scavenger hunt. There's like 7 questions-ish about the basics of riding the bus, and then 7 more questions that are word problems to do with things like how do you get a guest who's in town for the football weekend down to the stadium if you don't want to go pick them up, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I thought we would do is it'll be posted there, and I think I gave some indication of how many questions you would have to answer to get a prize, which I will announce later. I think, Amy, I'll let you speak to this first. I think the way we're going to have to do it, since I don't want like my email up on the website, is to have people, you all have access to my email through the church, but to have you mail in your answers to me, and then I will announce prizes at a later date. But I think even for those of you who live farther out and the system doesn't reach you yet, that it would be a really worthwhile thing to explore that website, because there are things on there that, I pride myself on kind of knowing the system pretty well. And there are things that are offered that I had no idea actually were available. And then you can teach a friend after that. And maybe someday we will all have the chance to do it together. But I think if First Press as a whole started to really take this seriously, beginning with those of us who do have immediate access to the buses, as if we were to swing behind as a collective group of people, swing behind this system, it will make a big difference over time, and it will make a big difference to what can be offered. Football is always going to be an issue, I think, but hey, this year I sincerely doubt we're having football. So I don't think anybody's going to be ready to be packed in with 110,000 of their dearest friends that close this fall. I could be wrong, but yeah. So again, this makes this a good year to experiment and to think about what's possible. So Amy, have I missaid anything?
No, and the other thing, my email is already posted on the website, so
okay.
if you wanted to send to me, that's fine too.
Okay.
And I'll forward on to Susan. But I'll kind of make a note of that you can just, for the YouTube users that might not have been in this class, I'll just make a note that they can email me. And because my email is kind of more public knowledge. So.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, Susan, you didn't leave directions on here. So I guess maybe it might be in an email somewhere, and I'll just look for it.
Oh, okay. I sent you a second email last night with an updated version. And I think just the instructions were to go on theride.org. And I think I said how many, but anyway, you and I can settle that afterwards. Thank you again, Amy, as always, for doing the tech side of this and making this possible. And that's it. That's it for today. Go enjoy the day, and tell me what you find on the website. You'll probably find stuff that I didn't even find myself.
One other thing, this probably won't get up until tonight at the earliest. I just have two
backlog
things. Yeah, I have backlog to deal with. So.
Oh, and that gives me another moment to remember. And so next week we won't be meeting live. Next week for this series, LaRon Williams, who's a local storyteller, will be doing Stories for Mother Earth, but he's going to record that, and it will be posted on the church's YouTube channel on Sunday. And so I really encourage everyone to take a listen. He's just an amazing storyteller. And we're just really, really pleased that he was willing, as a technophobe, as he calls himself, to actually do the recording so that he could be part of this with all of us. So happy Mother's Day to those who are mothers, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Susan.